all you need to know, the Bloomberg Quint podcast that prepares you for the day's business.
Good morning to everyone. I am Hormas Fatakia, back to tell you all that you need to know today on the 4th of March. First up, Bharat Biotech on Wednesday stated that its coronavirus vaccine, Covaxin, has shown an efficacy rate of 81% in those without prior infections after a second dose. That is higher than the company's own guidance last year of around 60% and the country's benchmark of 50%. The interim analysis was based on 43 cases. Close to 7 lakh people were vaccinated as of 7 p.m. on Wednesday, taking the total vaccination in the country so far to 1.63 crore. On to a Bloomberg Quint exclusive, the EPFO or the Employees Provident Fund Organization has proposed curbs on early withdrawals of pension contributions by formal sector workers. The new proposal says that the members may be allowed to withdraw benefits from the pension schemes only after 2 continuous years of exit from employment. The current cap is 2 months after exiting from a job. The EPFO's Central Board of Trustees will meet on Thursday to take up the proposed pension scheme. Market regulator SEBI has asked stock exchanges, clearing corporations and depositories to put in place code of conducts and an institutional mechanism to prevent fraud by them and their designated persons. MDs and CEOs of market infrastructure institutions or MIIs will have to formulate a code of conduct to regulate, monitor and report trading by their designated persons and immediate relatives towards achieving compliance with the prohibition of insider trading regulations. The circular has come into force with immediate effect. After Reliance and its partners Amazon, Facebook, Google, MasterCard and Visa have also entered the fray to apply for licenses to operate retail payment systems in the country. People familiar with the matter told Bloomberg that 4 consortiums are planning to apply for such licenses ahead of the 31st March deadline. While Reliance and the Tata Group are leading their respective consortiums, one of the group is led by Paytm's Vijay Shekhar Sharma along with Ola and 5 other companies. The other group is led by Amazon, Visa, ICICI Bank and Axis Bank. In key corporate news, Adani Ports will acquire 31.5% stake in the Gangavaram port from a Warburg Pincus associate for 1,950 crore rupees. The company said that it is also in talks with DVS Raju and family for the 58.1% stake that they hold in the port. With this transaction, Adani Ports' all India market share will rise to 30%. Adani Ports has also initiated consolidation of its rail track assets. An update on the Ircon International OFS, which was open to non-retail investors on Wednesday. The issue was subscribed 3.3 times, with the government announcing that it will exercise the green shoe option of selling another 6% equity in the company. Close to 2.25 crore shares will be up for grabs for the retail investors in today's session. The company will also be in focus after it received orders worth close to 200 crore rupees on Wednesday. Real estate firm DLF has announced that it will not be proceeding with the proposed issue of non-convertible debentures in order to raise funds. The reason for the moves were not specified in the exchange filing released last evening. The company had announced over the weekend that it will consider the issue of NCDs worth 395 crore rupees. Oil prices are trading above the $60 per barrel mark ahead of the crucial OPEC meeting that takes place later today. The 2 elements that investors are watching out for are whether the group will increase supply by 5 lakh barrels per day and how will Saudi Arabia phase out the voluntary 1 million barrels per day cut that it imposed earlier this year. Citigroup's Ed Morse asked clients to not bet on this meeting as there are too many wildcards at play. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called the U.S.'s dealings with China the defining test of the century, adding that the country's approach to China will be, and I quote, competitive when it should be, collaborative when it can be, and adversarial when it must be, end of quote. Former US President Donald Trump has been telling allies that he is strongly considering another run for the White House in 2024. People privy to the matter have told Bloomberg. However, his advisors want him to choose another candidate other than former Vice President Mike Pence as his running mate. With that, I head across to Neeraj Shah for the trade setup for the day. Morning, Neeraj. We have had 3 straight days of gains and now have completely erased all of Friday's losses. How are we positioned today ahead of the weekly options expiry?
Well, I must say it's the most difficult call this week, isn't it? Because the world is not in our favor. Now, let me just first tell you about how it's an important next 2 days from a global markets perspective. After a sluggish couple of months, America's labor market is expected to have regained some momentum in February, and therefore the latest non-farm payrolls report, which is slated to come out tomorrow, might reveal a healthy pickup in jobs growth, and that might have an impact on yields. So expect me to speak a lot more about it tomorrow, but keep this in mind. For today, the spotlight is firmly on Fed Chief Jerome Powell when he speaks at the Wall Street Journal event, and even though the Fed Chief has reiterated his stance enough number of times, it will still be eyed with curiosity. Keep in mind, while the bond yields rose yesterday, I think there is a fairly high probability that some of the inflation that we are seeing in the economic data around the world comes from the fact that there have been disruptions in supply chains due to natural events like the impact of Mother Nature on Texas, or they tend to be related to the COVID pandemic. And if they ease out, then maybe this comes back too. But for now, the markets gyrate to yields. Today is also the all-important OPEC meet, with oil prices soaring more than 70% during the past 3 months. The organization is facing increasing calls to start boosting the output. Now, on Thursday, the group could respond by further easing the output caps, though whether the decision will knock down oil prices will depend on how generous the supply increase would be. So, very important decision today. Now, coming to India, keep in mind, we will come off because of the world markets. The early risers in Asia are looking with a bit of pressure, and the US futures are trading negative. So keep that in mind. But yesterday, the US futures were positive, and then we saw what happened to the Dow and the NASDAQ, right? So it's very difficult to time this. However, India, yesterday the volumes were higher on the NSE than recent averages, with a very positive advance decline ratio as well. The NSE 500 was 2:1 in favor of the advances, and metals, bank, IT, pharma gained quite a bit. Broader markets too ended higher, even if the gains were modest compared to the benchmarks. But it seems to be the day of the pullback, and the weekly options expiry could add some volatility. Watch out for banks and tech shares. They may face some pressure today. A key will be Reliance, maybe, because the late surge that the stock has shown yesterday and the terrific showing it has put up of late will be the key question, whether Reliance can hold fort or will it see some selling. Steel companies could be in focus after the steel mint note of JSW cutting prices, which when we contacted the group, they said that they will revert because it could be a dealer-specific action, but they will give an official confirmation by noon. But let's see if this impacts steel stocks, which are showing some strong moves yesterday. All in all, an interesting day of trade today with likely pullbacks. The question is, will it be bought into? Time will tell. Please trade safe, and thanks for tuning into the podcast.
I hope you enjoyed listening to All You Need to Know. Did you know that you could listen to the show on the IVM Podcast app? On the IVM Podcast app, along with this, we have a number of other shows which you think you'll enjoy. Listen to Cyrus Says with Cyrus Brocha as the host. Listen to Paisa Vaisa with Anupam Gupta. The Scene and the Unseen with Amit Verma, or Shunya One hosted by Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay and myself. Check out the IVM Podcast app to get more talk content that you will enjoy.